Tommy Robinson is arguably one of the most polarising political figures of the 21st century.
You just learned a lesson in life. Don't f***ing mouth off when you can't handle it.
Politicians dream of the day that they could inspire the working class in the way that Tommy has, yet publicly deride him for his views.
As if somehow, I was linked with the Tommy Robinson wing of politics.
In this video, we will take a deep dive into the life of Tommy Robinson, from his upbringing to his political activism, trouble with the law, and his journalistic efforts. But first, we need to go back to 1982. Tommy Robinson was born in November of 1982. His birth name is Stephen Yaxley, but he was later adopted by his stepfather, an Irish immigrant named Thomas Lennon, and then took the name Stephen Yaxley Lennon. In the 1990s, Tommy attended Putteridge High School in Luton. Throughout his time at school, Tommy claims to have witnessed gang activity, mostly along religious lines.
It was the front playground was the Muslims' playground.
Mm-hmm.
The back was the non-Muslims' playground.
Mm-hmm.
And there were clashes at school.
Right.
If someone messed with one Pakistani kid, 10 of them would jump them. Luton, everyone's the sons of immigrants. You line all my friends up, they're all the sons of immigrants, but there wasn't a divide through race. So when people talk about racial tensions, I never saw racial tensions in my town.
In 1998, Tommy applied for and successfully attained an engineering apprenticeship at Luton Airport. 600 people applied for just 4 positions, and this displays an early level of drive and success in Tommy's life. The apprenticeship lasted for just 5 years, and he qualified as an aircraft engineer in 2003 as what looked to be the start of a promising career. In 2004, Tommy Robinson made his first step into the political arena, joining the British National Party. At the time, the British National Party, or BNP, was headed by Nick Griffin, a controversial figure with strong anti-immigration and nationalist views. However, Tommy Robinson's time as a member of the BNP did not last long, leaving after just 1 year. He later explained that he had not fully understood the party's ideology, and in particular, he was unaware that non-white individuals were barred from membership, and as a result, he left the party.
I was a member when I joined because of what was happening in my town in 2009.
Right. That's quite an extremist organisation.
Didn't you
so you were an extremist?
No, I wasn't an extremist. Imagine Nawaz was in jail.
How could you be a member of the BNP and not be an extremist?
Because I was 21 years old and I joined the organisation.
In 2004, Tommy's life would take a complete U-turn when an off-duty police officer intervened in a street argument between Tommy and his then-girlfriend, Jenna Vowles.
I was arguing with what become my wife and the mother of my children. Mm-hmm. So we're arguing at 2 a.m, and then a bloke turns up in a pair of shorts. He says, right, calm down. You're going to walk that way. Where do you live? She lives up there, which is up an alley. I'm going to walk her home. I said, don't be stupid. Get back, fuck off, mate. Yeah? And then he admits this, yeah? His name was Christopher Dalton, armed response police officer, which I didn't know at the time.
Okay.
He then rung and rugby tackles me to the floor. He throws me on the floor. Yeah? Once he throws me on the floor, I don't really care who you are. He throws me on the floor, I get up and beat him up, basically.
Had he been drinking?
No, he hadn't been drinking. I had.
But he was not on duty and not...
Not on duty, but then he says in his statement that he identified himself. After throwing me onto the floor, he pulls out his warrant badge. Yeah?
And did he?
He didn't.
In April 2005, at Luton Crown Court, Tommy was sentenced for 2 charges relating to the assault. He was given 12 months imprisonment for assault and 3 months imprisonment for resisting arrest to be served concurrently. This prison term ended Tommy's career working as an aircraft technician and radically changed the course of Tommy's life. Not much is known about Tommy between his release from jail and 2009, other than that he was working as a labourer for at least some portion of that time. However, in 2009 came Tommy's first significant step in his political activism. It was at this time that Tommy established his first organisation, United People of Luton, or UPL. This organisation was formed in response to a March 2009 demonstration by Islamist groups Al-Muhajirun and Allah Sun wal Jama'ah. Both of these groups had publicly protested against soldiers from the Royal Anglian Regiment who were returning from the Afghan war, accusing them of war crimes. The protest was seen as deeply disrespectful to many people in Luton, including Tommy. The UPL acted as a precursor to the second organisation that Tommy would found that year, the much more infamous English Defence League, or EDL. Tommy founded the English Defence League alongside his cousin Kevin Carroll in 2009. The formation of the EDL appears to be a response to a specific event, Tommy reading a newspaper article about local Islamists in Luton attempting to recruit men to fight for the Taliban in Afghanistan. Early membership of the EDL drew its ranks from the football subculture in Luton, but quickly spread to become a nationwide organisation. The chief aim of the English Defence League appears to be halting and reversing the Islamisation of Britain, and this is in keeping with Tommy's broader political activism. In 2010, the European Defence League was founded by Tommy as a kind of umbrella organisation with the objective of coordinating similar groups throughout Europe. The early days of the EDL drew significant criticism. Likely owing to the fact much of its membership was formed from football club supporters, there were tensions within the organisation as well as frequent clashes with counter-protesters whenever the EDL rallied. However, claims that the EDL was in some way racist appear to be completely unfounded. In fact, the EDL had divisions for Hindus, Sikhs, Jews, and even Pakistani Christians. One of the key slogans of the English Defence League was "Black and White Unite. All races and religions are welcome in the EDL."
And whatever the press and everybody told you about the English Defence League being far right and racism, I saw it for myself. That never even existed at all, and that's why I really got interested in it.
Members generally seem to be supportive of a multiracial Britain, but starkly opposed to multiculturalism. Indeed, the broad sentiment appears to be a rejection of specifically Islamic culture within the UK. Just 2 years after founding the EDL, Tommy Robinson encountered a series of legal troubles. The first of these relates to a 100-man brawl that took place between supporters of Luton Town Football Club and Newport County Football Club. During the altercation, Tommy was reportedly heard shouting "EDL till I die." Later in 2011, Tommy was arrested after an EDL demonstration in Tower Hamlets. As a result, he was placed on remand at HMP Bedford. During this period of incarceration, a group of EDL members protested outside the prison on the 10th of September. 2 days later, Tommy was released on bail. The legal troubles of 2011 did not stop there, however. On the 29th of September, Tommy was convicted of common assault after headbutting a fellow EDL member at a rally in Blackburn some months prior. The court sentenced Tommy to 12 weeks imprisonment, suspended for 12 months. Tommy's final brush with the law in 2011 came after he orchestrated a rooftop protest at the FIFA headquarters in Zurich. This protest was in response to FIFA's decision to prohibit the England national football team from wearing remembrance poppies on their shirts. As a result of this protest, Tommy was fined £3,000 and served 3 days in jail. Somehow, amidst all of the legal troubles that 2011 had thrown at Tommy, he still managed to marry his long-term girlfriend Jenna Vowles that year. In 2012, Tommy affiliated himself with a political party for the first time since 2004 by joining the British Freedom Party. The party was well known for its stance against both Islam and immigration. Robinson was appointed as joint vice chairman of the BFP, sharing the position with his cousin and fellow EDL founder Kevin Carroll.
We want to put everything into it. The same way we've dedicated our lives into the English Defence League, we're now going to dedicate our lives to the British Freedom Party.
However, just a few months later in October 2012, Tommy resigned from the party, citing his wish to focus all of his efforts on the EDL. The next thing that Tommy does is one of the most inexplicable and bizarre moments of his story. At some point in October of 2012, Tommy decided to take a trip to the United States. However, knowing that he would not be able to enter the country due to his criminal history, he borrowed a passport from a friend named Andrew McMaster. Once he arrived at JFK Airport, customs officials quickly realised that Tommy and Andrew McMaster were not the same person, and they scheduled an interview with him at the airport. However, Tommy proceeded to leave the airport and enter the US illegally. The following day, Tommy boarded a flight out of the United States and back to the UK using his legitimate passport. Curiously, his legitimate passport bears the name Paul Harris. I could not find anywhere a good explanation for how Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, has the name Paul Harris on a legitimate passport, and so this remains a mystery. Even the judge himself during sentencing remarked, "I am going to sentence you under the name Stephen Lennon, although I suspect that is not actually your true name, in the sense that it is not the name that appears on your passport." Indeed, the name Paul Harris has been used by Tommy as recently as 2019 in order to establish a series of companies. Nevertheless, in January of 2013, Tommy pleaded guilty to the charge of entering the United States illegally and was sentenced to 10 months imprisonment, being released on an electronic tag in February of 2013. 2 key events occurred for Tommy in 2013. The first key event revolves around a serious terror plot that was foiled through nothing but chance. 6 Islamic extremists, armed with shotguns, knives, and bombs, had planned to attack an EDL rally that Tommy was attending. Somehow, inexplicably, they arrived to the location of the rally in Dewsbury 2 hours late. They subsequently left the area and their vehicle was stopped and seized for having no valid insurance. At this point, the police had no idea that the individuals had been plotting a terror attack. This realisation only came to light when a search of the vehicle was made a full 2 days later by police staff at the impound. The second major event of 2013 is that Tommy, alongside his cousin Kevin Carroll, left the EDL. The move for Tommy to leave the EDL and the subsequent rapid decline of the organisation as an effective entity appears to have been pushed and negotiated by Majid Nawaz, a former Islamic extremist turned reformist. At the time, Tommy is quoted as citing grievances with members of the organisation who supported violence against Muslims. He felt that he could not be a part of an organisation with those who would commit violent acts.
Now, I was released on tag. When I was released on tag, it's the first demonstration in 3 years I hadn't been to. And when I looked at that Manchester demonstration, and I saw flags and signs, white pride flags, I saw things that did not represent me. Yeah? And I've managed to steer this. Very difficult. But when I was looking at it, I thought that does not represent me. Am I willing to be the public face for them? No, I'm not. And that's the big issue for me. That's when it started. This started in February. And I come out and I will not be the public face for them. And then I've said, when someone turns up at a demonstration and they lift up their top and they've got a picture of a mosque and it says boom, yeah, Muslims think they're offended and they're upset. We're offended by that.
Majid Nawaz himself is quoted as saying that, as well as being a very positive change for the United Kingdom, this is a very proud moment for Quilliam. Quilliam, for those wondering, is a counter-extremist think tank primarily staffed by Muslims within the UK who oppose Islamic extremism. In 2014, Tommy finds himself in an altogether different kind of trouble, this time for committing mortgage fraud. An employee working for Tommy had made fraudulent statements about his earnings in order to secure a mortgage on a property. However, by the time the fraud was discovered, the mortgage had been paid in full due to the resale of the house. Nobody actually lost money during this crime, although it was still a crime, and Tommy was sentenced to 18 months imprisonment.
My brother-in-law, who was young, who was an apprentice, he earned 12 grand a year, but he said he earned 20. I lent him a deposit for the house, to buy his first house. I used to get repossessions. So all 7 of the houses that we bought were repossessions. So he buys his first house. He does it up. It's in 2006. He does it up. He sells it a year later, buys it for 80, sells it for 120. Yeah, pays him back my money. Right? He's got on a property ladder. 2 years later, I start the English Fence League. 3 years later, they come and nick us all. Right? So when they go through, they find he lied on his mortgage form. So then the money that comes from the sale, even though the mortgage company are paid back, is proceeds of crime. So I end up going to jail where no banks lost any money, where everyone self-certified on their mortgages. It was encouraged by the banks. But I had to plead guilty to get my family off. So I pled guilty and I got 18 months. 18 months, man. I got 18 months and I get transferred to maximum security Woodhill.
Tommy was sent to HMP Woodhill for the mortgage fraud, and here he suffered a serious assault by fellow prisoners. During this assault, Tommy lost his front teeth and was later moved to HMP Winchester, eventually being released on licence in June 2014.
I go for a meeting with my legal team again, because I'm going through, I was trying to do appeal. I go for a meeting with my legal team. I come back after the meeting, I'm getting walked down. There's a room the size of this lounge. Door opens, it's the waiting room. Door opens, so I just walk in, I see beards. So I was looking, thinking, oh, fucking hell, man. And I didn't even sit down, because I just stood I put my back to the wall, prison officers locked the door, and boom, I lost my teeth, I got battered.
Shortly after his release, Tommy was recalled to prison where another serious incident took place.
So then I come out, so my cell comes out, and no one has my back in there, because there's too many Muslims. So I come out, and on 24-hour police custody, I'm standing there, and some white boy comes up to me, and he says, Tommy, you're going to get done with boiling water. Yeah? I said, who's going to do me with boiling water? And he says, he says whatever cell number. He says, look over. And I looked over, and there's a Somalian kid, and there's the boy from Bedford, yeah? And they're talking at the door of another cell. And he goes, mate, the amount of money they've put up for you to get done, it might not even be a Muslim that does you. I said, all right. And he goes, but the Somalian kid's going to do you with the boiling water. So I said, all right, sound. So I walk straight over and fill the Somalian kid in before he has a chance to even look.
Later that year in October, Tommy addressed the Oxford Union. The address garnered significant attention and controversy, and Unite Against Fascism organised a counter-protest. During the speech, Tommy railed against Islamic extremism and asserted that HMP Woodhill seemed to be some kind of ISIS training camp.
Another point I'll make to you about prison. I've been in prison. Woodhill is an ISIS training camp. That's it. Our Category A jails now are radicalising and radicalising. We've got 800 coming out a year. When you go to jail, you're weak, you're vulnerable. You're now being turned to hate the system, hate the country.
In 2015, following the completion of his prison sentence and the lifting of his licence restrictions, Tommy resumed his activism. He aligned himself with Pegida UK, an offshoot of the German anti-immigration organisation Pegida, which stands for Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamisation of the West. Tommy addressed a Pegida UK rally where he expressed concerns about Islamic terrorists allegedly posing as refugees in order to gain access to Europe.
We don't know who they are, we don't know what their motives are in being in Europe. We've already seen 130 people killed by so-called refugees in France. We have a big problem.
In June of 2016, Tommy travelled to France for the UEFA 2016 football tournament. However, this trip was not solely about watching football. At the tournament, Tommy wore a t-shirt and carried an English flag that mocked ISIS. Upon returning to the UK, Bedfordshire police imposed a football banning order on him for the political stunt. In court, Tommy's solicitor argued that the police's actions seemed to be equating ISIS with all Muslims, and the judge agreed that the prosecution's evidence was vague, thereby dismissing all of the charges. In 2017, Tommy again faced serious legal consequences when he was charged with the first of many counts of contempt of court. These charges stemmed from his actions at Canterbury Crown Court, where he filmed at the court premises and made, as the judge declared, prejudicial statements about the defendants whilst the jury was still deliberating the case. Robinson was sentenced by the judge to 3 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months, and this suspended sentence would later be activated. Tommy faced a new challenge in March of 2018 when he was permanently banned from Twitter. The social media platform, at the time a public company headed by Jack Dorsey, cited violations of its rules on hateful conduct as the primary reason for the ban. This was a serious blow to Tommy's activism, as Twitter was one of his largest platforms at the time, but it would not be his last social media ban. 2 months later, in May 2018, Tommy was reporting on the Huddersfield grooming gang trial. He was live streaming outside of the courtroom when the judge summoned Tommy and sentenced him to 10 months imprisonment for contempt of court, as the judge had placed reporting restrictions on the case to ensure a fair trial.
How are you feeling about your verdict? How are you feeling about your verdict? What verdict? How are you feeling about the verdict? You got your prison bag for you? Yeah, look here. Got your bags for you?
The judge also activated the 3-month suspended sentence from Canterbury Crown Court, and so Tommy now faced 13 months imprisonment in total.
And was this the incident where you asked a convicted how he felt about his sentence?
Yeah, I said, how'd you feel about your verdict? As he walked into court, I got 13 months in jail within 2 hours. I done an hour live stream outside the court. So I got the court papers, yeah, and I got the transcripts. And the Muslims tried arguing that what I said jeopardised the trial. That same judge that gave me 13 months, the next day, in his wording, said, I've watched the entirety of Tommy Robinson's video. Nothing he said could have jeopardised his trial. It was just all a lie, yeah? I didn't say anything. When they put me to jail, I'm sat in jail, and I see it on the news, and they're saying that I pled guilty, yeah? I think I didn't plead guilty. What are you talking about? I never pleaded guilty. I didn't even get asked to plead guilty. So all these lies are going on, and it would take a journalist 10 minutes to go get the transcripts and see what happened, yeah? And I thought, how are you all lying?
Tommy was sent to Onley Jail, but launched an appeal against the sentences, which successfully returned a retrial on the 10-month sentence and saw Tommy freed in August of 2018.
We grant the extension of time in respect of the finding of contempt in Leeds Crown Court and allow the appeal against that finding for the detailed reasons set out in the judgment, essentially because the process was flawed. We direct that the matter be remitted for a rehearing before the Recorder of London, sitting at the Central Criminal Court, as soon as reasonably possible. In the meantime, the appellant will be released from custody.
During his time in prison, Tommy's case caught the attention of high-ranking officials in the US government. Sam Brownback, the US Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom, lobbied the UK government regarding Tommy's treatment. Tommy's time in Onley Prison seemed to be even more disastrous than previous sentences. He spent most of his time in solitary confinement and lost 60 pounds of body weight, describing this sentence as mental torture.
So I come out looking like a crackhead, yeah? So they said, okay, well, there's intelligence that your wife's going to be attacked with acid. I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, we need to know where she is. And then they just shut the door. I'm like, bruv. Like, it was waiting until Saturday, then I get to ring my wife, and the police have knocked on her door, and they've given her intel, and my mum's, that there's going to be an acid attack against them. And then what they leave them with is some little bit of paperwork that tells them what to do if you're attacked with acid. But then the deep thing is, and I question, was there that plan to do that to my wife, or was that all to fry my head? Because it worked. I come out of that prison, you can watch there's a video where I come out, and I watched one recently of that night I went on Tucker Carlson. I was ill. I was sick, seriously sick. Like, I was a mess.
Upon release, Tommy looks physically smaller and weaker when speaking to journalists outside of the prison.
Why would I have anything to say to you? All you do is lie. You've lost the faith.
I'm just asking you a question.
You've lost the faith of the British public.
In October of 2018, following his release from jail, Congressman Paul Gosar and other members of Congress invited Tommy to speak at a private meeting in the US Congress. However, despite the invitation and sponsorship, Tommy was not granted a visa to enter the US and the meeting never took place. This is likely in part to his previous illegal entry of the United States. 1 month later, Tommy was appointed as the grooming gang advisor to UKIP under Gerard Batten's leadership. This is owing to the extensive journalism and research that Tommy has made in this regard. This decision was controversial, especially within the party itself, and former UKIP leader Nigel Farage publicly criticised the position, resigning in protest alongside many other UKIP members.
There was one last hope that the party's national executive at the weekend would do something about this, would, pass a motion of no confidence in Gerard Batten ahead of what's due this Sunday. And this Sunday, there's going to be a march in London with Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson as the speakers. And I, with a very heavy heart, given how much I've cared for this party, the people within it, have reached, I think, a very sad decision, certainly very sad for me, that I simply can't go on with it.
Tommy later became entangled in a global scandal when he reported on an incident at Almondbury Community School. A video surfaced showing a young Syrian boy being assaulted by a fellow British student. It is clear that the boy was assaulted, but Tommy's investigation centred around why the incident had happened. He used covert recordings of teachers and spoke to fellow students about the Syrian boy. Tommy concluded that the Syrian boy, whose school records he somehow attained, had a reputation for lying and violence, threatening to, and indeed assaulting, other female students.
I had taken the hockey puck off of Jamal because I was on the other team and sent it to the other side of the room where my teammates were. And I then turned around and just felt a really sharp pain in my back, and he'd swung the hockey stick over his head and hit me in the spine with it.
Covert recordings with teachers and students confirmed this to be the case.
How do you see your putting a picture together?
And then they built up.
I couldn't comment on that, but you've got a picture there.
Tommy produced a documentary laying out his evidence, but the documentary was suppressed by a judge who ruled that the documentary was libelous and could not be released. Indeed, Tommy was even ordered to pay a large sum of money to the family of the Syrian boy. Later in America, the documentary was leaked in a cinema, and in fact, Tommy has since published the documentary under the name Silenced. It has been viewed over 50 million times on X, and Tommy is currently facing a contempt of court charge for releasing the documentary. His hearing for this charge is on the 28th of October of this year, and if he's found guilty of this charge, he could be sentenced to up to 2 years in prison. The following year, in 2019, Tommy's social media troubles worsened. In January, YouTube announced that Tommy's account would no longer be monetized due to breaches of the site's guidelines. Shortly after, Facebook and Instagram followed suit by banning Tommy from their platforms. Facebook was Tommy's largest platform, and his removal seems to stem from a controversial comment he made alongside a rape crisis flyer. The flyer urged victims of minority ethnic backgrounds to come forward if they had been assaulted, and Tommy questioned why this didn't include white women and girls. Tommy was also placed on Facebook's list of dangerous individuals, whatever that means.
You still can't name me on Facebook, I think. Did you share it?
I got a 3-day ban for sharing the podcast.
You got a 3-day ban for sharing a podcast. If you mention my name, you get a ban. Like, if someone puts a picture up with me, they get a ban. Like, what have I done?
In April, Snapchat also terminated Tommy's account, meaning that he had lost access to all of his major social media platforms, massively hindering his ability to distribute his activism and his journalism. Tommy's removal from all of these platforms in such a short space of time seems at best suspicious and at worst coordinated. It seems unlikely that Tommy had been acceptable to all of these platforms until early 2019, and then suddenly found to have been in breach of all of them. In fact, later when Elon Musk bought Twitter, the level of government involvement and pressure on social media companies became public in what was dubbed as the Twitter files.
Your testimony about the Twitter files and your tentative conclusion about what they may indicate is a product. First, it bears repeating. I mean, you said there that it, quote, could well constitute the largest censorship program ever run by the government.
Tommy later announced that he would be running as an independent candidate for the European Parliament elections in the North West constituency. His campaign sparked some controversy and was marred with clashes between rally-goers and counter-protesters in Warrington, but ultimately Tommy's bid to become an MEP was unsuccessful.
That's what you get for being a fascist! Fuck off! You fucking Nazi prick!
Tommy attributes his failure to become an MEP to the difficulties that he had had with social media platforms, and specifically an inability to distribute his message effectively. And it seems very likely that this would have had a negative impact on his campaign.
Trump won his campaign on social media. Brexit was won on social media. I'm banned from all social media. So my ability to fight a fair campaign is gone, orchestrated and organised by the government. So do I think I stand a chance? I think it's near on impossible to fight that. How can you fight a whole establishment that are funding, the union funded 100 billboards of lies against me? I can't even counteract them.
In January of 2020, Tommy's journalism earned him the International Free Press Society's Sappho Prize. The award, given in Christiansborg Palace, Denmark, is meant to recognise journalists who demonstrate excellence, courage and a steadfast commitment to their work. Just 1 year after his removal from all other social media, Tommy was banned from TikTok for promoting hateful ideology. The ban was triggered by a video in which Robinson held up the Quran and made derogatory statements about it. Tommy's now total removal from major Western social media platforms forced him to move to VK, a kind of Russian Facebook. However, with fewer English speakers on VK, Tommy's message was massively reduced. Tommy became embroiled in another scandal during 2020, the infamous case of Eleanor Williams. Williams claimed to be the victim of a Muslim grooming gang, and this piqued Tommy's interest as he has investigated and campaigned on these issues previously. Tommy travelled to Barrow-in-Furness with the intent, at first, to make a documentary exposing this grooming gang. However, during his time in Barrow, he began to disbelieve Williams' story. He sat down with one of the accused, a man named Mo Rami, and this started to confirm his suspicions that Williams was lying.
Apparently, the only thing that I got told it first happened when she was 13 and she worked for me in the Elephant. She's never worked for me in the Elephant. I didn't even know her when she was 13.
I asked Ronnie if she ever worked at the Elephant.
Yeah.
What did he say? No.
Thank you very much.
Tommy even confronted Williams' stepfather about the possibility Williams was lying whilst he was in Barrow.
You know everything that's going on?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
How come the public haven't been told about the previous allegations?
No comment.
No comment? Yeah. Don't you think if there's a campaign that people should know the facts?
Unfortunately, before Tommy could finish investigating this incident, he was involved in a physical altercation with another man who had verbally abused and spat at him.
Is that it? Have you come to do anything? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You fucking little... fucking little prick. You fucking mug. Spit at me, you fucking... You think you're fucking spitting me, bro? Fucking prick. Fucking... Wait, look, don't do that, don't dare. You fucking little bitch. Get your fucking arse up before I fucking do you. Yeah? You've made... Yeah, well done. Well done, go on, babe. What, you gonna do anything else? Spit at me again. Spit at me again. Spit at me again. Spit at me again. And you just come up and spat in my face. Don't talk to me about hate.
After you started having a go about Muslims.
No, you had a go. You called me a racist. I said who am I racist against? You just learned a lesson in life. Don't fuck your mouth off when you can't handle it.
Whilst Tommy was eventually cleared of all charges, largely owing to camera evidence, he faced judicial conditions which prevented him from investigating or reporting the matter any further.
So basically we were arrested by the police. I was then given bail conditions not to enter Cumbria, couldn't talk or investigate anything further. I couldn't even contact, I was given a long list of names of people I couldn't contact in Barrow to investigate.
It was widely reported in the media that Tommy had gone to Barrow to incite trouble and harass Muslim men in the area. This narrative, set by the media, is completely opposed by Mo Rami, the accused man who later appeared on a podcast with Tommy and defended his actions in Barrow as a journalist seeking the truth, whatever that may be.
Whether people say you're a journalist, you're not a journalist, you did it professionally. You did what you said to stand proud to do, you did it right. I ain't blowing smoke up your arse.
No.
I'm being straight with you, man to man.
My job was just to find the truth. Do you know what I mean? So I was just doing my job.
And I think you were the first one that actually did it. Yeah. And you would have been the first one if it was actually true to bring me down as well.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Like, the way you did it, you were doing thorough.
Yeah.
And you do thorough.
Now, and they were letting me, and the fact that they didn't let me put anything out meant it carried on for so long.
So long. And you could have, you know what?
I could have ended it.
You could have ended it.
I know.
You could have ended it.
And I was about
to end it.
You know
what? I said to my missus and kids, you know what? I look at you sometimes and think, you're the Malcolm X of the white people.
It later became apparent that Williams had indeed been lying, and she had even used a hammer to create serious injuries to herself in order to perpetuate her lie.
That gives a total sentence of 8.5 years imprisonment.
Despite all of the challenges that Tommy's life had thrown at him, his marriage had lasted for 10 years. Sadly, in 2021, Tommy became divorced from his wife. Tommy's fortunes with social media would change in 2023 when he was reinstated to Twitter, now X. The decision to reinstate Tommy's account, alongside many others, came after Elon Musk's ownership of the platform. Tommy's restoration onto X brought about a renewed potency to his activism. Whilst he had still been making documentaries during his social media bans, he now had a major platform to distribute them on. No documentary that he had published on Rumble had anywhere near the level of reception and success as his documentary Silenced, which was posted to X. Tommy had been attending a Stand Up to Anti-Semitism rally in London. This is not surprising, as Tommy has been a vocal supporter of Israel and the Jewish people for his entire life. However, when he arrived in London, he sat down to have breakfast. Suddenly, he was surrounded by police officers who had issued a Section 35 directive ordering him to disperse from the area.
Excuse me, officer, what's going on? What's going on? What's the matter?
The chief executive of Stand Up to Anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, had spoken to police and asked them that Tommy be removed from the area. During a conversation with the police, Tommy explained that he was a working journalist covering the protest and, as such, a Section 35 order could not be applied.
I'm here as a journalist. What's your problem?
Shame on you,
I don't see anyone has a problem with you.
Nevertheless, Tommy was arrested and subsequently pepper sprayed by officers.
This is disgusting. This is disgusting. You know it. You know it.
The case against Tommy was eventually dismissed due to supposedly shoddy paperwork. However, it seems absurd that one civilian can order the police to remove a journalist from an area just because of political differences. In 2024, the UK experienced a brief period of rioting. The riots followed the killing of 3 girls in Southport by a second-generation immigrant. The media relentlessly blamed Tommy for these riots, but a cursory glance at his social media shows him only appealing for calm.
Bring the numbers, bring the noise, but don't bring any violence, man. Our country is in the gutter. We ain't going to win it back by throwing a few rocks at coppers. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, but to go out and burn a police building in a block of buildings with multiple occupancies is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
As stated at the start of this video, Tommy Robinson is arguably the most polarising figure within the UK. His political views, activism and frequent scuffles make him a magnet for headlines and media scrutiny. However, in truth, Tommy Robinson seems to me to be unfairly maligned. His views are broadly similar to those of Douglas Murray or Christopher Hitchens, 2 men who never saw the same wrath of the media.
I don't want them to live here. I don't want them here. They came under false pretenses. Many of them came illegally and continue to come illegally, and we don't want them here.
The difference between Tommy and these men seems to come down to the method of delivery. Tommy's method is often rough and abrasive, a man who comes from a working class background, but his views are nevertheless similar to men who attended Oxford and Cambridge and yet receive far less scrutiny. This video has not covered every aspect of Tommy's life, or even all of his journalistic efforts. More of that can be found on his Rumble account. But what I hope that I've managed to achieve is giving an objective insight into who this man is, good and bad, and encourage you to consider him on his own merits rather than straplines.